Hi, it's Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to review another battery. This time it's the Digi Marker 314. I'm liking this one already. Haven't taken it apart yet. Let's find out what's inside, but this is a great little battery. I said great little battery. This is actually a big battery. 314 amp hours, but in a small case. Now the battery's inside this box. I'm going to pull it out in a minute and we'll look into the battery. That'll be the primary part of the video. But they sent me this. This box is kind of cool. First off, the price. The battery right now is $699. The box is an extra $100 if you want it. Now, for some of you, it's going to be well worth it. For some of you, it just isn't. Whatever you need. But let's talk about what this box is. So it's a battery box, of course. What's a battery box do? Well, it keeps your battery tied down, and there's a strap that goes over the top and everything. Sometimes it keeps water out of the battery, but this battery is quite waterproof. There are vents and everything. You wouldn't want to get this battery box wet. You wouldn't want to mount it outside, because it's loaded with other things. It's got a couple cigarette lighters. It's got a USB power supply for, they're both A's. One of them is 1 amp and one is 2.1 amps. They all come on with this switch. The switch tells you the voltage in the battery. I just charged this up to test the high-end balance and everything, so that's a really high number. Over here, there's some Anderson connectors and a fan. Around the back are 2 battery terminals going right to the battery. So you could drop this in someplace to take advantage of all that, plus, still have it hooked to your camper or whatever. And then over here, another fan, switch, and we have a 500-watt inverter. I also like that the fan only comes on when it gets hot, but it does come on when you first turn it on, so I know it's working. Now, I've got a space heater here that I can turn down to 600 watts. More than it should have, and I plugged this in before. It works. It runs that space heater. It's doing it now. I have the app up. It's drawing out of the battery 44.3 amps at 14 volts, so you can do the math, but that's way more than 500 watts. 500 won't run a circular saw, but it'll run a lot of other stuff. Pretty handy. If you've got like a work van or something and you want to charge up battery-powered tools, there's plenty of inverter from that. I kind of like the little battery box, but it's hot enough in here. Let's turn that off. Okay, that's the box. That's out of the way. Let's turn it off and take the battery out. Okay, I'm back. Let me get the watch off because I might forget later. We're going to open it, so we don't want to have any metal on us. It's a metal case. Maybe not the first choice for you boat people. Honestly, I think if you sprayed it with some bow shield when you put it in there and nothing, it would probably hold up just fine forever. But, you know what your environment's like. A lot of these batteries are also available in plastic case. I did a review of the PUP battery in a metal case just recently. Really liked that battery. In fact, let me just rant on batteries for a bit. I like that battery. It's in my camper. That and an SOK, I think. So I got loads of battery in the camper. I've been testing last summer. I started testing some real high-end batteries, epochs and stuff. That SOK, a couple other, pricey battery. The Blue Heron, which is probably the only pricey battery that's worth its salt. The rest of them, like if you offered me right now for my own personal use, a brand new Epoch 300 or one of these cheaper Chinese versions, even though that costs more than twice as much, I would kick that out the door. I would use one of these. They're better batteries than the high-end ones. And because of my run-in with Epoch, unless they stand up and do what they said they were going to do, they just plain lied to me. I'll never, ever say another nice thing about them or review another one of their batteries. Their batteries were crap. But they asked me to be a little nice and send it back to them so they could fix it. and they would send me the new one when it's fixed. And I thought, yeah, okay, they're going to get right on it. Months and months went by, they did not get on it, and then I contacted them. Yeah, sure, we'll send one right out. Now it's crickets. They won't talk to me anymore. So, don't buy their batteries. You know, you can't treat people badly and expect to sell inferior products for way too much money. Enough said on that. All right, so we got a really nice handle that folds up on its own. It just kind of feels like an ammo box, you know? And the whole thing kind of is an ammo box. It's got a switch on it. I like batteries with switches. Might seem silly, but the idea is if I turn that off, not only can I drop a wrench across this without sparks, but if I turn that off to put it in storage, the BMS is a computer and it's constantly using some power out of the battery. And if I turn off that computer, it'll use less. So my storage time should be much, much longer. I fired this guy up. I charged it up with my bank manager, as I always do. Bank manager finished his charge cycle. The battery was cool with that. I overcharged it, as I always do, up into the hockey sticks. I've done some balancing videos recently, why and how to balance these batteries. If you buy a new battery, balance it. Very, 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 very important. Would you drive your car and never change the oil? If you're that guy, then don't balance your battery. But if you're not that guy, balance your battery. It's just as important. Well, let's get to the app here. The app is the only thing I found that I don't like about it right now. Right now, the app is not available on the Play Store. You have to go to their site and get it, which makes me think that, you know, it could have a virus or something, because the Play Store does some diligence for us and protects us from some stuff. So I didn't put it on my regular phone. I put it on an old phone I had and loaded it up. It's an okay app. It's got some weirdness to it. If you go to the part of the app where it shows you the cell voltages, it only shows you 0.1, you know, 1 decimal place beyond the decimal point. So that's useless to us. And it would be useless, except the main screen has the difference between the high and low cell. And that's all you really care about anyway, so there you go. I'm going to open this up, put my meter on the cells, and verify that's correct. Because if they're lying to us, then the whole thing is, you know, ridiculous, but we'll know in a minute. I think this app meets the minimum requirement. It's a little buggy, but this is a very old phone, so maybe that could be the problem. Otherwise, seems a fine app. And by buggy, I just mean you have to restart the app if you leave it set for like an hour. So it balanced up nicely. I did the type of balance. I tried every different one because every BMS has its own personality. On this guy, what seemed to work the best and get me the most improvement per cycle was to set my bench power supply for 200 milliamps. Bring the battery down a bit so it would start taking power again after the last full charge. And the beauty of that, in the box, I just turned the inverter on. The inverter used enough power, like an amp or so, to bring the battery down. Turn that off. It would do a cycle. I left it that way all night. So on its own, it would very, very, very slowly go down in voltage and then do another cycle. And really, in one day, it came down to perfectly good tolerances of balance. Part of that could be because I got lucky, or they just did a bit of pre-balance, because this one happened to come to me in pretty good balance. You know, not great, but good. That's good. It's going to be hit or miss. You might get one in balance, you might not, but it's got to prove that it can balance, and it proved to me that it can. It is 13 inches straight up by 7.5 inches by just a skosh over 8.5 inches. I never count the terminals or the handles because, you know, what they are. But the terminals are on the order of an inch, depending how much you put on there. It did come with these nice little covers, actually, that you could lock on and, you know, keep that wrench from falling on them. Kind of like that. All right, well, let's whip it open. All right, last one. Looking forward to this metal case. All you have to do is take screws out and you can open the case. None of this hammering and chiseling and cutting. They put sealant in all the little Allen wrench holes. Oh God, this was hard to get open. It's open. I've got it off. Got my watch off. Let's see what we see. All right. They put sealant on the screws, but they did not seal the seam. So this is not a hermetically sealed battery. Keep that in mind. Honestly, I don't know if it matters because what's inside is sealed, the cells. BMS is on this side. It's got a decent looking heat sink. Well, let's see if I can dump the cells out without starting a fire. Whoa! Lots of double-sided sticky foam inside. That's why. Well, I got it. Wasn't easy. Okay. Let's see what we're going to see. The BMS is by a company called Bestway. It's a 200 amp BMS. All right, let's get it around so you guys can see. Actually, let's get you around so I don't have to move the battery so far. So here's the BMS. Here's the wires. On the grounds, on the negative side, 3 8 AWG wires going to the BMS. The BMS itself goes with a bus bar into the cells. The positive side is larger, as it always is. It's probably adequate for 200 amps. I did very, very much want to look at the individual cell voltages. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this wire, because this goes to all the individual cells. So I'm going to do this off camera because it's going to be fiddly. But I'm going to charge it right up into the hockey sticks. Then I'm going to pull this wire off, check all the voltages as quick as I can because they'll be coming down. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that the BMS report through the app is accurate. If they had a problem, since they didn't give me the individual cell voltages that I can add up and compare against the output voltage and say, yep, that, double entry accounting, right? They didn't do this. They just tell me the difference, and then they kind of coincidentally didn't give me enough accuracy. Anyway, at the end of this, when I get back, I'll either say they're a bald-faced liar or I'll say, hey, this is great, and I think it's going to be great. See you in a bit. I'm back. Different shirt, different day. Takes a lot of time to do one of these battery reviews right. I mean, it's like 4 or 5 days of I'm not sitting here. I'm setting up tests and monitoring tests and coming back, but it takes a while to do this right. I don't just sit down and say they're pretty. I think I left you with, are they lying to us? It turns out they are, but probably not in a evil way. While I was away, I pulled this header off, and that gives me access to the individual cells. And here's my notes, or the last set of my notes. Forget all that. This little section's of interest right here. So I charged the battery up. By the time I got at it, I checked the app, and the app said it was at 14.494 volts with a differential of 0.014 between the highest cell and the lowest cell. Now, that number is going to be steadily going down, so it takes me time to do this test. So at the end of my test, I did it back to the app again, and I found 14.448 volts with a differential of 0.013 volts. So my numbers that I get should be between those two brackets. What did I get? Well, these are the 4 cells. I got, first I just did them all from ground because I didn't have to move as many wires, and then I did math. And I found that the first cell was 3.5622 volts, then 3.608, 3.617, 3.607. The difference between the high, bank cell 3, and the low, cell 1, was 0.055 volts. Huh. That's bigger than either of their range. It's significantly bigger, like, what's that, 3 times bigger? I think what happened, and the reason that they don't give you the accurate cell voltages, they give you the cell voltages but only to 1 decimal place, is they probably screwed up on the hardware, and the voltage they're actually reading from the cells is off by a lot. And they're adding a scaling factor, and the net of that is it's probably fine, because these numbers are fine numbers, and it's what I would expect for a battery that's being treated well. So I think they've got an error and then a correction, and then when it came to display time, they couldn't figure out what to do to not show that there's an error inside. So they did this. The net of it is that VDIF is wrong by about a power of 3. So when you let this battery balance itself, you've got to keep balancing it until it's like 3 times better than whatever your limitation is. I usually say they've got to be better than 0.1. And this one is better than 0.1. It's half of that. Now, the good news is the cells are getting balanced, and they're getting balanced well by this device. I don't like being lied to. I think if you make an error, you fix it. But does this really affect the battery? Only ethically. It's still doing the job it needs to do. It's getting where it needs to be. You just have to know that if you're going to manually balance it. If you're just going to let it kind of balance itself and hope for the best, well, it doesn't matter at all then. You won't even look at those numbers. Kind of like this battery. I don't love it because there is that pup, you know, and it's similar. It's in a metal case, but this guy's smaller. He's more normal battery sized. So if you had a space that could fit this, what is it? Probably like a group 31 case size, more or less, maybe a 27. Get this, because the other one won't fit, right? You know, it's too tall. It's a fine battery. Let's go through the leaderboard stuff. So capacity. This guy, when I discharged it, I found 330.9 amps hours. It was sold as a 314. That's about what's expected. You get a little more than you pay for, mostly because after about 10 cycles, it does come down and then it plateaus off. So 314 is probably what you would get. This is like all batteries. Anyway, more than we asked for. I've been giving that an excellent. Cells probably mattered more a while ago. I just haven't heard much about bad cells, you know. It's not like any of the batteries that I'm reviewing. Like, I get asked to review things and I look at it, it's just too good to be true. I probably should say yes, take it in and just tear it apart and roast it. But all in all, cells are so cheap now. Good cells are so cheap now. Nobody's trying to sell used cells and crap cells. I think that category could just kind of go away. I don't think anybody's making really bad cells and putting them out. Build quality. Well, that's where I put the BMS stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. It works. It's got good enough wire for what it is. It puts out 200 amps, which is a good amount for a battery this size. If you needed more than 200 amps, you would just get like 2 of them because they would be depleted in an hour and a half. And that's just, you know, not how I use batteries anyway. So I think it's a fine BMS, except for the fact that they've got that bug and they lied. Probably some engineer trying to cover his tracks. But it works okay in the end, as long as you know that you've got to make it more balanced than you think you need to. I didn't like the app not being available at the App Store, but I bet you money that after this video, their marketing people are going to fix that, because that's nothing to do with engineering. That's just doing the diligence to get it into Google's Play Store and all of that. Didn't crash my phone. I didn't have any viruses on it or anything, but I did put it on an old phone because, you know, that feels a little bad. But, you know, if I had to do it over again and I saw this review and I saw that the app didn't, like, you know, blow up the phone, I'd probably put it on my main phone. Case. As far as metal cases going, it's great. It's the size I would want it to be. It just fits. It's, you know, good and strong because it's metal. I would personally spray it with like Bow Shield, which is a wax product, before I put it onto a boat, and then I'd kind of expect it to last a long time. I do wish they would have sealed it with some like silicone around the edge before they screwed it together. I don't know why the hell they put sealant in the screw heads, but they didn't put sealant around the joint. But they didn't. Thing is, if you want to get the screw heads off with an Allen wrench, you could easily just lift it a little bit, put some sealant on it, put it back down, and you'd have a hermetically sealed case. But it's steel, and the screws are steel as well, which is probably better than mixing stainless steel with regular steel. So I'll give them a great for the case. I wish it was plastic, and I wish it was sealed. Company, nobody's gotten back to me. Nobody's ever, I think they're kind of new. Nobody's ever said, oh, I bought a Digi Marker and I hate it, or they were bad customer service. I got to tell you, from the marketing group point of view, it's been great. They were good to talk to. They sent me a battery quite a while ago, and it never made it to me. The shipper screwed up. I think the shipper damaged the box or something, and went back to them, and they sent another one out, but they were right on it the whole time, telling me what's going on, sending me tracking records, all that. That isn't who you're going to buy from. You know, you won't be going through marketing like I do, but, you know, it's the same business with the same ethic, and I've seen some really bad marketing departments. So I think, yeah, let's give them an excellent. Cost to value, I'm going to give them an excellent minus because they cost more than that pup, and it's kind of similar battery. But if you needed to fit it into a box, or you just really liked that battery box that they sent me around it with a little inverter in it, and I can see that being really, really handy in a lot of situations. I have a good friend he's like a general contractor, handyman kind of guy, and he's got this trailer, and in the trailer he puts lithium batteries. He's got solar on the roof, and he charges his drills and stuff. And I think this battery might end up in my friend's trailer. It's a good big battery, doesn't use up much room, and with that integrated inverter, it'll be great for his little power drills and things. And if you had that need, this setup would be a good setup. Okay, I am going to update the leaderboard. I've been a little remiss on that. I think I've been remiss on it because of the hassle with the Epoch company. It just made me do the bare minimum as far as accounting after the job. So I promise I will update and get this one on there and put some of the other missing batteries on there so the leaderboard will be up to date again. If Epoch ever does the honest thing that they contracted to and send me the corrected battery after I spent like 3 weeks solving their problem and explaining to them what their problem was, and they understood their problem, they begged me to send the battery back with the promise they would send me the repaired one, or a new one, you know, with the new tech, and they didn't. But I just had to get over it. So buy this, don't buy an Epoch. Buy from Clark on Temptress.